Okay, Marlon Schmidt, Edmonton Gold Bar MLA here with the next video in our React series, the Alberta Next panel. One thing that I wanted to make explicitly clear at the top of the last video that I didn't, but I want to do it now, is that this entire exercise by Danielle Smith and the UCP is meant to direct the anger that Albertans are feeling towards something that is completely out of Danielle Smith's wheelhouse and directed at an enemy that she wants you to be angry at instead of her. Albertans are angry right now. The cost of living is really high. People are having trouble finding a house that they can afford. They can't buy groceries. It's hard to find a job. They get this, and the people who are working feel like they're falling more and more behind. And Danielle Smith and the UCP want you to believe that it's somebody else's fault and not their fault. And that's entirely what the point of this Alberta Next panel is. And I think the topic of today's video is the perfect example of how right-wing governments direct anger that should be directed at them to a time-tested enemy, and this one is immigrants. You know, we see right-wing governments and parties all around the world targeting immigrants as a way to direct people's anger at the economic system that's screwing them over, and that's what the UCP is doing here. So we're going to react to Danielle Smith and the UCP's video on immigration system.
The Alberta Next panel is touring Alberta to hear from Albertans on how our province can better protect ourselves from Ottawa's economic attacks, while building a more prosperous, strong, and sovereign Alberta within Canada. A provincial referendum on some of these ideas is coming in 2026. But what's on that referendum ballot and what happens next for Alberta is up to you. One idea being discussed by the panel is Alberta taking more control of the immigration system to counter Ottawa's open border policies.
I'm going to stop it right there. Danielle Smith and the UCP are lying to you when they say that Ottawa's policies are open border. We have a very highly regulated immigration system in this country. Yes, the government has been letting in more people than they were previously, but that's hardly open border. When I hear open border, it makes it sound like anybody who has 2 feet and a heartbeat will walk into Canada and start living here. That's not the case. Canada is a very hard country to get legal immigration status to, and this phrase open border policies is a lie that Danielle Smith and the UCP are telling you to make you angry at Ottawa.
Driving up the cost of living and are not aligned with the needs of Alberta's economy. In just over 100 years, Alberta's population has grown from a few 100,000 farmers, ranchers, and First Nations peoples to a province of over 5 million, with one of the most prosperous economies in the world. This great success story would not have been possible without new...
I just want to say, one of the reasons that Alberta is one of the most prosperous economies in the world is because we invite immigrants to come here. Immigrants bring their talent, their drive, their ambition, and make Alberta a better province. And that's why we're so prosperous.
This great success story would not have been possible without new Albertans moving here from all over the world. That is why Alberta has always welcomed newcomers looking to contribute to our province's economic success and unique culture. And we always will. However, as all Canadians intuitively understand, the number of newcomers entering the country each year needs to be sustainable, and everyone wanting to come should be committed to upholding the Canadian values of hard work, love of freedom, and peaceful coexistence.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and think that maybe Danielle Smith and the UCP think that the immigrants that are coming to Alberta aren't committed to hard work or the love of freedom or peaceful coexistence. That's not the Alberta that I see. Every day, everybody that I meet genuinely agrees on all 3 of these values.
Sadly, Justin Trudeau's Liberals upended Canada's immigration system for over a decade.
Okay, here's the boogeyman. If Trudeau is for it, you must be against it. Of course, I think that Albertans have a more nuanced understanding of these policy issues than Danielle Smith and the UCP give you credit for.
For a decade, by instituting an open borders policy that permitted millions to enter Canada each year, often without any sort of proper vetting, job prospects, or needed employment.
Oh my God. This is so crazy. Okay, my understanding is that yes, the Canadian government did increase the number of people who were allowed to come into Canada, but they didn't change the rules around who was eligible. They just increased the number of people who were eligible under the rules that existed before. And I challenge any one of you. So, you know, one of the things that makes Canada's immigration system one of the most outstanding immigration systems in the world is this idea of a points-based immigration system. So we select immigrants based on their ability to contribute to Canadian society, and we assign them points for a number of characteristics. So if they're of working age, they get a certain number of points. If they can speak English or French, they get a certain number of points. If they have training in an area where we need skilled workers, they get certain points. I challenge people who were born citizens of this country to take that test and see if they would meet if they would achieve the number of points that are required to immigrate to Canada. I know I've done it in the past. I didn't have the number of points that would be required to immigrate to Canada as a skilled worker. I'm wondering if most people who were born in this country would as well. So this idea that immigrants are coming to this country without the proper vetting or the needed skills or job prospects, completely false.
Or needed employment skills. The results have been disastrous. Housing prices have skyrocketed. Unemployment.
Okay, housing prices have skyrocketed. It's not immigrants who are driving that. It is wealthy landowners who continue to buy up land and housing in Alberta and drive up rents, and the government's absolute refusal to construct affordable housing in this country. Again, immigrants are being blamed for a problem that lies solely at the feet of the UCP. They refuse to deal with the issue of adequate housing supply, and they want to point the finger at immigrants so that people don't realize that they're the ones who are failing.
Unemployment keeps increasing as immigration outpaces job growth.
Unemployment keeps increasing. That's not a problem of immigrants. That again is the problem of the UCP failing to develop an economy that's growing in step with the population. We need to have an economy that grows quickly, and we don't have that anymore under the UCP. It's not immigrants' fault, it's the UCP government's fault.
And sadly, many of the divisions and disputes that plague other countries have begun making their way into ours. Further,
yes, they have been making their way into ours, and that's because politicians like Danielle Smith and her UCP colleagues fan the flames of anger. They don't do anything to try to calm the waters and make sure that we all live peacefully together. It's videos like this that continue to stoke the anger. And Danielle Smith and UCP are squarely to blame for people feeling angry about immigrants when it's their own economic policies that are causing people to suffer.
Further, Ottawa has ignored the request of Alberta to cut refugee claimants and student visas, and instead permit Alberta, like Quebec, to select a more sustainable and targeted number of economic migrants better able to contribute to our province's economy. What can Alberta do about the situation? Quite a bit, actually. You see, under the Constitution, immigration is a shared area of responsibility between the federal and provincial governments, which makes sense. Essentially, the federal government gets to decide who they let into Canada, but it's up to the provinces to provide the vast majority of the social programs that newcomers need. So obviously, we should have a say about who is coming here. If Alberta isn't satisfied with the number or economic qualifications of newcomers moving to our province, We may have the option to withhold provincial social programs to any non-citizen or non-permanent resident who does not have an Alberta-approved immigration status. This would likely encourage more sustainable numbers of immigration overall, while supporting the entry of newcomers that can contribute to our provincial economy. If Alberta went this direction...
Really disturbed by this. You know, if you have the right to live in Canada, you have the right to access the healthcare and the education that you and your family deserve to make a valuable contribution. You know, in order to work, you need to be healthy. And if you're sick or you're injured, you need to have access to a healthcare system that will allow you to make that contribution. Danielle Smith and the UCP are clearly undercutting everybody's ability to contribute to the economic growth and the well-being of our province by saying that only some people are eligible for the social services that we are all entitled to.
If Alberta went this direction, Ottawa could decide to fight Alberta on this issue in the courts, and there would be some additional costs in taking a more hands-on approach to immigration. However, much, if not all of that cost, could be offset in corresponding savings to our social programs.
The implication here is that it's immigrants who are using the social programs in outsized amounts. There's no evidence that that's the case. And in fact, immigrants are net economic contributors to Alberta. So the UCP here is again lying to you about the costs of the social programs. So
should Alberta take more control of the immigration system in this way, or continue with the status quo? And how can our province convince Ottawa to act more responsibly with their immigration policies in the future? For more information, visit alberta.ca/next.
I like that for more information when we just sat through 3 minutes and 41 seconds of something that was complete misinformation. I would have loved for any genuine information to have been available in this video. Like, I get it. The cost of housing is high. It's really hard to find a doctor. If you go to an emergency room, you're going to be waiting for hours and hours. That's not immigrants' fault. That's the UCP and Danielle Smith's fault. They're not investing in the healthcare system that you and I need to respond to our healthcare needs. They're not building affordable housing at the levels that we need to make sure that my kids can be able to afford to buy a home when they move out of the house. They're not creating the jobs that Albertans are looking for to take care of themselves and their families. None of this is the responsibility of the immigrants. And it's also not the responsibility, it's not entirely the Government of Canada's fault. You know, the last video that we looked at said that the Government of Canada should be limited in the amount of money that they want to spend. It's like, well, okay, if the Government of Canada wants to allow more immigrants, why would the Alberta government say, no, you can't spend money on providing them social services? It's completely insane. This is absolutely a time-tested right-wing approach to directing people's anger at a classic enemy and away from where people should be directing their anger. It's clearly Danielle Smith and the UCP's fault that we don't have the health care that we need and that life is becoming less and less affordable for you and me. Don't blame the hard-working, ambitious, talented immigrant who is just coming to Alberta looking for a better life. Look at the UCP and Danielle Smith who are not interested in making your life better. Thanks for watching.